Beat Saber releasing their new free music pack. But probably the craziest news we had is the Quest V38 update, which packs a lot of new features, especially for Meta Horizon Home. And also, make sure you completely destroy that subscribe button on your way in. And with that said, let's get right into it. We finally got a new update for the Quest 2, with this one being called the V38 update, with the biggest changes being directly on your Quest homepage. For example, the app library will now highlight apps with multiplayer features if you are in a party with others at the moment. And likewise, there is now also a recently met feature, which will let you connect with users you've recently played games with. And I think this is a really nice touch, because this makes it so much easier to quickly jump into a game with friends or with people you've met in your previous game session. The settings menu has also been updated, with a new layout and now an added search bar, which should make it a lot easier to use. They also put a few settings from the experimental features to full releases, with the most notable one being the mixed reality couch and desk option, where you can choose to put your couches and desks that you have in your real play space in virtual reality. That way it makes it easier to interact with the objects around you without having to break the immersion of taking off your headset. Plus, they will then accurately be represented in your home environment on your Quest. These new features are now located under the Guardian settings, and you should definitely give it a try. On top of that, the mixed reality tracked keyboards has also been moved from experimental features to full release, which lets people use their physical keyboards in VR, turning your Quest 2 into a full workstation. But keep in mind that only a select few keyboards are capable of doing this. But besides the settings, in this update, the Quest 2 also got improvements in its overall tracking system, although it was without any specific further details. Any improvement in the tracking system is always welcome. They also updated the headset's UI, where they replaced the Oculus logo with their new Meta logo. But all in all, this update seems to be very centered around social features, mostly trying to improve the experience within the Quest home, with the reason being that they are laying the groundwork for their eventual upgrade to what they call Horizon Home. And for those who might have missed it, Horizon Home was announced last year, and it is supposed to replace the now used Quest Home in the near future, which a lot of people have been waiting and asking for a long time. Because when you put on your VR headset, the first thing you see is your Quest home environment. But sadly, right now, it's only used as a quick way to access your games or apps, with a very small and limited way of personalizing your home environment. But that is all about to change with Horizon Home, which should be just as customizable as the Oculus Home from the Rift S. But it would also unlock the possibility for you to invite friends to your own VR space. And I think that could be exactly what we need in VR right now. This way you could create your own cool hideout where you can chill with your friends and from there on easily jump in together into some VR games. But we don't know when the launch date of Horizon Home will be. But with this update, we can clearly see that they are starting to roll out these features for the eventual upgrade in the near future. However, besides all these amazing updates, there were also a lot of problems, from missing apps to account issues. Meta themselves acknowledged that a Quest account issue has been popping up recently, which led to a lot of users being logged out of their headsets or others missing their library of apps entirely. Luckily, the majority of all these affected accounts have been fixed, but the company says it's still working on the remainder. So if your Quest has been acting weird, you are not alone. But do make sure you report it and update to the latest software. It isn't clear exactly how many users have been impacted, but apparently it was enough to cause Meta to put a large temporary banner on top of their support site, reading that they're currently investigating the reports of account issues, including logins and missing app libraries. And while I have not experienced any of these issues myself, make sure you check out your Quest if you haven't used it in a while. But next up is some big news from Beat Saber, because they just released their OST 5 music pack. Beat Saber has been going strong for almost 4 years right now, and it's showing no sign of slowing down, with their new introduction of their free music pack called OST 5, which includes a total of 6 new songs. But probably the most exciting is the addition of their 2 all new block slashing mechanics. You might have already seen them in their newest trailers, but this is the first time Beat Saber has added 2 new mechanics since its original launch, with the first one being the addition of glowing lines, which the players must trace with their sabers. And it looks like these lines can be used to guide the player to the blocks according to a specific path. And it looks pretty awesome. But they didn't stop there, with a second new mechanic being a string of mini blocks, which almost looks like small slices of a normal block, which encourages the player to cut along a certain path, but in this case each contributing to their own beat of the song. But do keep in mind that these new mechanics will only be added in the new OST 5. So you won't be seeing them in older songs or music packs. But altogether, I'm very excited that Beat Saber is updating their games to keep it interesting even after all those years. But before we get into the next crazy story of Nintendo trying, gaming giant Nintendo is interested in the metaverse, but only once it's ready. The company president from Nintendo said some interesting things regarding VR. He stated the following: "The metaverse has captured the attention of many companies around the world, and it has great potential. Animal Crossing New Horizons are sometimes brought up as an example, and in that sense, the metaverse is of interest to us." After that, the president went on to explain the concept of the metaverse and how it would be relevant to Nintendo. But it seems like they still have way too many doubts to fully commit to it. Although we did see that Nintendo tried to get into VR in the past. Think about all the way back with the Virtual Boy, which sadly didn't become a success. But also more recently, in the form of Labo VR for the Switch, which looked kinda similar to a Google Cardboard, but with some extra added features. But altogether, it didn't deliver a high-end experience. And personally, I don't think Nintendo will be pulling off a high-end VR headset anytime soon. And this is mainly because their games itself were never meant for high-definition gaming, where their most famous games like Zelda Breath of the Wild or games like Mario Odyssey are one of the best games ever made. They still run in 720p on the Switch console, where they sometimes struggle to keep up 30 frames per second. Compare that to the PlayStation 5 powerhouse that pushes out a 4K resolution at a steady 60 frames per second. It is mostly the power that the Nintendo console would need to be able to pull off virtual reality. Although I would think it would be amazing to play an open world Zelda or Pokemon game, I personally think that it will be a while before we can see Nintendo pull this off. But of course, we can still have hope. But in the meantime, it turns out that the VR users on Steam grew by a total of 11% in the last year. Every single month, Steam does a hardware survey at where they look at which VR headsets are being used the most. And of course, the Quest 2 has been rocking it ever since it launched, but is now almost taking over the whole VR market, where Facebook now owns a total of 67.2% of all VR headsets, while HTC and Windows Mixed Reality are dropping drastically. This is only for PC VR usage. And while the Quest 2 is originally a standalone headset, this means that their actual market share is probably even bigger. Normally we cover these graphs every month and are happy to see the overall growth in VR, but I'm personally starting to worry a little when I look at how big the market share of Quest 2 is getting, with the only other company being the Valve Index, who has not declined over the past month. But we also know that this year, Meta is coming up with a new release called Project Cambria, while the rest of the competition from HTC, Valve and Windows Mixed Reality have been very quiet and don't have any VR headsets that will be launched soon. I personally think it won't be long until Meta takes over the whole VR market. But let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. And that rounds up this crazy VR news. And make sure that you completely destroy that subscribe button. And while you're at it, destroy that like button as well.